The forest has always been my sanctuary, a place of peace, solitude, and the thrill of the hunt. I'm Mark, and for 30 years I've tracked deer, elk, you name it, through these ancient woods of the Pacific Northwest. I've seen things that would make your hair stand on end, cougars silent as ghosts, bears larger than my pickup truck. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I stumbled upon last fall. It was late October, the air crisp with the promise of winter. I was deep in a part of the forest I rarely ventured into, tracking a massive buck I'd been watching for weeks. The trail was getting faint, and the sun was beginning to dip below the jagged peaks, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. That's when I heard it. It wasn't the cry of a bird or the howl of a coyote. It was a sound of profound grief, a low, guttural sob that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath my feet. It was a sound that didn't belong to any animal I knew. My hunter's instincts screamed at me to turn back, to get out of there. But my curiosity, that little voice that always pushes you a step too far, got the better of me. I chambered around in my rifle, not out of aggression, but out of a deep primal fear of the unknown. I crept forward, using the dense ferns and ancient cedars for cover, moving toward the source of that heart-wrenching sound. As I peered through the foliage into a small, secluded clearing, my heart hammered against my ribs. What I saw defied all logic, all reason. It was the creature of legend, the myth whispered around campfires, the one I'd always dismissed as a tall tale. Bigfoot. It was massive, at least 8 feet tall, covered in thick, dark fur that was matted with pine needles and dirt. Its sheer size was intimidating, a wall of muscle and wildness. But it wasn't the creature's size that froze me in my tracks. It was what it was doing. It was hunched over, its broad shoulders shaking with those terrible sobs, and nestled in its lap, cradled with an impossible tenderness, was a smaller version of itself, a child. The little one was whimpering, its breaths shallow and weak. One of its legs was twisted at an unnatural angle, and a dark, ugly gash ran down its side, staining its fur. It looked like it might have fallen from a ridge or been attacked by another predator. The larger creature, which I could only assume was its parent, was gently stroking the child's head with a hand the size of a dinner plate. It was trying to clean the wound, licking it softly, its deep-set eyes filled with a pain and desperation that I recognized instantly. It was the same look I had seen in my own wife's eyes when our son fell from a tree and broke his arm years ago. It was the universal, unmistakable look of a parent terrified of losing their child. In that moment, everything I thought I knew shattered. This wasn't a monster. This wasn't a beast to be hunted or feared. This was a father or a mother watching their baby suffer, helpless and heartbroken. My rifle, which had felt like an extension of my arm just moments before, suddenly felt like a ton of lead. The cold steel was a stark contrast to the raw, living emotion I was witnessing. The big creature looked up, its head snapping in my direction. Its nostrils flared, and a low growl rumbled in its chest. Our eyes met. For a terrifying second, I saw raw, protective fury. It could have torn me apart without a second thought, and I would have deserved it for intruding on such a private, painful moment. But then its expression changed. The anger faded, replaced by that same desperate sadness. It was as if it was pleading with me, not with words, but with a look that transcended species. "Help us," it seemed to say. "My child is hurt." I stood there, completely exposed, my rifle still in my hands. The thought of raising it, of pulling the trigger, was abhorrent. It would have been like shooting a man kneeling over his own dying son. The hunter in me, the part that lived for the chase and the prize, simply vanished. All that was left was me, a person, a father, watching another parent in agony. Slowly, carefully, I lowered my rifle. I unslung my pack and took out my first aid kit. It wasn't much, some antiseptic wipes, bandages, a roll of gauze. I placed it on the ground, then took out a canteen of clean water and an apple. I pushed them forward into the clearing, a peace offering, an acknowledgement. The creature watched my every move, its eyes never leaving mine. It was wary, tense, but it didn't charge. It seemed to understand my intent. I backed away slowly, never turning my back until I was deep in the shadows of the trees. I didn't run. I walked away with a heavy heart, leaving them to their grief, but hoping my small offering could provide some comfort, some small measure of help. I never saw the buck again that day. I didn't even look for its tracks. The thrill of the hunt was gone, replaced by something much more profound. As I walked back to my truck in the deepening twilight, the forest didn't feel the same. It felt older, more mysterious, and filled with a kind of intelligence I had never considered before. I've never told anyone this story until now. People would call me crazy, say I was seeing things. Maybe I was, but I know what I saw. I saw a parent's love in the eyes of a creature that shouldn't exist. I saw a soul where I expected to find a monster. That day I went into the woods a hunter, and I came out something else. I still go into the forest, but my rifle often stays at home. I walk more quietly now, not as a predator, but as a guest. And sometimes, when the wind whispers through the pines, I listen for that sound again, not with fear, but with a strange kind of hope. Hope that the little one survived, and that somewhere, deep in the heart of these ancient woods, a family is still together. I couldn't pull the trigger, and I never will again. Not after that. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had an experience that changed the way you see the world, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more tales from the wild. Stay safe out there.